So, the AFL has a Marcus Bontempelli problem. And what do I mean by that? Well, this guy is a 6-time best and fairest, a 6-time All-Australian. He's been voted by his peers and by the coaches as the best player in the AFL multiple times, both in 2021 and 2023. However, the highest individual honour has somehow managed to escape him on numerous occasions. This guy has never managed to win the Brownlow Medal, which is crazy considering how dominant he has been across multiple seasons. And other than that, this guy has just filled and ticked every single box as a player. He's won a premiership, he's been named the best captain. There is nothing that this guy hasn't done except won the Brownlow, which is obviously the highest individual accolade a player can achieve. How is this possible? How is it that a player as dominant as Marcus Bontempelli, and a player that everybody across the AFL knows and recognises as the best player in the competition, how does this guy manage to get overlooked in the Brownlow Medal year after year after year? Well, obviously the first time this happened was in the 2021 season when he came second in the Brownlow Medal to Ollie Wines, who actually tied Dustin Martin's record at the time with 36 votes, which was insane at the time. Obviously, we had no idea that Paddy Cripps was going to poll 45 votes and the Brownlow Medal was going to almost lose all of its credibility soon afterwards. But I think everybody can agree that Ollie Wines at the time was nowhere near viewed as the Brownlow favourite or even as a candidate. I think he would have been, in my prediction back then, maybe 6th or 7th. Like, he was an All-Australian and he had a great statistical year, but he was nowhere near the likes of Clayton Oliver or Jack Steele or Marcus Bontempelli at the time. And having a look over here at his 2021 statistics, he averaged 32.5 touches, he averaged 6 clearances, half a goal a game, and incredible fantasy numbers, just proving that he was a very efficient statistical player. But there is no way that he was a better player than Marcus Bontempelli in the 2021 season. And this is the reason for this, alright? If you look at Marcus Bontempelli's numbers in 2021, they're pretty similar. He averages more goals, similar clearances, similar tackles, similar marks. But it's at disposals. Marcus Bontempelli had a phenomenal year, but he averaged 26.7 disposals. And that was, I think, the second highest of his career other than 2023, which we'll get to in a minute. But Marcus Bontempelli is not a high disposal guy compared to some of the premier midfielders of the competition. And Ollie Wines averaged 6 more disposals than him, which has clearly become something that sort of determines who wins the Brownlow Medal. And as dumb as this may sound, the correlation to disposal getters to the winner of the Brownlow Medal is incredibly obvious. And you may be like, oh, well, that's expected. The more ball you get, the more votes you're going to poll. And yes, that is correct to an extent. And looking at last year's Brownlow Medal leaders and comparing that to the disposals, you can see a player like Adam Treloar, yeah, he led the AFL in disposals, I think for midfielders, maybe overall last season. And this guy was top, 7 in the Brownlow Medal? And there is no chance that Adam Treloar, despite how good of a season he had, there is no way he's a top 7 player in the AFL. Tom Green, who didn't even make the All-Australian team, finished, 6th in the Brownlow Medal? And if you have a look at his disposals, he's there in 2nd. Even though I think everyone can agree he wasn't dominant last season at all. He got a lot of the pill, but he didn't have a season like some of the other midfielders in the competition. And other than Matt Crouch on this list, the correlation to disposals to Brownlow votes is very, very obvious. Even Paddy Cripps averaged 29 disposals, which is only 1.5 or 2 off of these other guys, which is why he's still polled very well. And despite Marcus Bontempelli having a top 3 season, in my opinion, last year, if you scroll down on here, you still don't find Marcus Bontempelli until 23rd in the AFL. I think it's about 20th or maybe 18th or so out of midfielders. Averaged 25.8 touches last year. And the correlation to Brownlow votes is very obvious. He is way down here, outside the top 15 in the Brownlow, which is insane. A similar thing happened to Marcus Bontempelli in 2023, where I thought he was leaps and bounds above the competition that year. And Lachie Neale, who didn't even make the All-Australian and was shaking his head when he was awarded the Brownlow Medal, managed to beat Marcus Bontempelli and Nick Dacos in that count. And even though Lachie Neale didn't have a great statistical season that year, I think the umpires gave him the benefit of the doubt because he's been such a proven ball winner throughout his career. And it is such a hard job for the umpires to be able to determine who the best player on the ground is when these guys aren't allowed to see statistics, not allowed to rewatch the game, they're not allowed to have any outside voice or opinions on the game, and they're supposed to just determine based on what they saw who were the best players in the game. And obviously, the players that are going to stand out to the umpires are going to be midfielders mostly, and they're going to be the players that are around the ball the most, which is why you see midfielders and now recently ruckman being the highest polling players in the Brownlow Medal. And if the Brownlow Medal wants to regain its credibility, there's going to need to be some changes. So what I think should happen is the voting for the Brownlow Medal should be taken out of the umpires' hands. I believe that who should decide the Brownlow Medal should be down to the media or the players or the coaches. Similar to how the MVP is in basketball or any other sport, the AFL is really the only sport where umpires determine who the best player in the competition is. It's not fair on them. They're having a hard enough job running around the entire game to have to really analyze who the best player on the field is, and it's very easy just to fall back on who the best name is or who the biggest name is on the ground. And we've seen this countless times before with Lachie Neale polling 3 votes with 20 touches, or seeing Jason Horne-Francis get 15 touches and polling 3 votes. So having the media or having analysts being able to accurately determine who the best player is based on statistical metrics, or just by even the fans voting on who they thought the best player was throughout the season, is a better way of doing it, I think, than having the umpires do it. But no matter what the solution is, I think that everyone can agree that there has to be change. Because, let's face it, a player like Marcus Bontempelli is way too good to have never won a Brownlow Medal. And I think that a new voting method or new officiating can also allow for players in the forward line, like someone like Jesse Hogan this year, or a defender, to poll very, very well in the Brownlow instead of it being just a midfielder's medal. And defenders especially play such a pivotal role in a team's ability to win or lose, and I think it'd be so great to see a player like, for example, Zach Guthrie, who has a lockdown role on some, forward mid or whoever it is, and to see him get recognised with 3 votes is something that would never happen when the umpires are officiating, because they're just going to go with who they see, get the ball the most, which obviously makes sense, and it's not something that I think we should be getting upset about. But to be able to recognise players for doing little roles like that you can only really see if you're analysing the game as a coach, or as a player on the ground, or as someone in the media or someone who's watching the game. Like, you can sort of see that sort of thing. And I think those sort of unheralded players just really get overlooked. Like, for example, someone like Nick Smith, who went 200 and something games without ever polling a Brownlow vote, despite playing some of the most pivotal roles against players like Eddie Betts or Cyril Rioli back in 2016, 2015. So to see players like that earn that respect that they really deserve would be something I think would be really, really cool. And I think that voting inflation has gone absolutely out the window. So having the Brownlow Medal be a breath of fresh air would be something that is very cool, and seeing maybe a different type of player win it would be amazing to see. Or even if it's just someone like Marcus Bontempelli who actually wins it when he deserves it.